Well, it's not the most exciting opening like our Friday night shows on DCG Entertainment, but it was what I thought fit the scene of late night with Denny Cool, the first live talk podcast. Now, I will be doing some podcasts that will be pre recorded, and that's going to be for obvious reasons, content edit and stuff like that. But tonight, I wanted to launch live, and I did send out an email, but for some reason, when I sent that out, I think it was Thursday, I believe, I thought it was sent, but when I looked in the drafts, it never went through. So apparently I didn't hit send. So I figured, well, I'm going to send it out. And if people join, fine. If they don't, that's fine too. I totally understand that. But I am excited. You know, unlike the Friday night shows, um, this is going to be a totally different thing. Um, as many of you know who are featured and who are members, we feature great artist members from around the world. We just did a live broadcast with two fantastic members, great people, Matt and Judy. They did an amazing job. And it's such a great show on Friday nights, isn't it? We feature artists, the members, but it's more than that. It's about people coming together, supporting each other, lifting each other up. And we don't know what each other's going through unless you know them personally. But when it's all said and done, I personally always walk away from our Friday night shows with just such great inspiration, and I always feel a little bit better than before I got there. And that's kind of what I hope to do with my talk podcast, is to hopefully have some great conversation, meaningful conversation, uh, try to bring some positivity. There's a lot of crap going on in the world, and I like to divert away from that as much as possible. There are podcasts and stuff that people can go to if they want to be clued in and get involved with other events, but this is not the podcast for that. I don't give my political views on things. I have my opinions, but I tend to keep them to myself. There are, certain friends and family that you can discuss things with, and I think people need to do that in order to vent. But sadly enough, there are so many people that are just closed-minded into listening to others, and it's not a right or wrong thing. A lot of times, you find that you may have an opinion on something, and that opinion, if it doesn't align with that person's thoughts, then automatically you're wrong, right? Or they get upset. Have you ever had that happen to you? I have, so many times. And so a lot of times people just clam up. And it doesn't always have to be political, but there are just other things, basic things, that people just get upset about if you don't agree with their line of thinking. So this live podcast is not about me agreeing with anybody. And I also hope to bring, some fun topics, some weird topics, bizarro topics, whatever. I want people to just have fun with it. I want to hopefully inspire others. And mainly, even if you don't chat or you don't text into the text line, which I will say in a little bit, and if you have a question, even if you don't do that, even if you just sit back and listen, and hopefully you find me entertaining somewhat. I don't know, maybe I'll bore you to death. I don't know either. But I love to talk with people. And I also love to listen. So again, guys, whether you're watching now or you watch this podcast at some other point, Thank you for joining me. And this will be on the main channel, DCG Entertainment. I'm adding this live podcast to the main channel. So this is part of DCG Entertainment. We are a full entertainment show. And again, for those of you that may be watching that aren't familiar with the live stream on Friday nights, it's a great show to be part of. We have the best members, the best community ever, in my opinion. They're just heartfelt people. They genuinely care about each other. They care about others. They bring hope, inspiration, and encouragement to all of the shows. And of course, the talent, all the performers. It's just amazing. And so we grew into this worldwide family. And for the most part, nobody's ever met. There are some exceptions to a few members that have actually met up, and whether they've had lunch or visit each other's homes. So there is that. But for the most part, we have members all over the world. And we feature artists from all over the world. We can say that. In a large part, a little over 90% of the artists are from SingSnap. I joined SingSnap. For those of you that don't know what it is, it's probably one of the largest singing platforms. It's a karaoke site, essentially, but you can go on there and record yourself and make videos and sing to your heart's content. It's a really good site. They're great people. Trevor, he owns it. He's a great guy. Novella, she helps run it. Many of great staff members on there. Bev, all of them. They're just such great people. So if you get a chance, if you want to sing, jump on over to singsnap.com and tell them that DCG Entertainment sent you. And I'm sure they'd be happy to take you on board. With that being said, let's kick off the show. So there really is no set monologue or script that I have written down. But what I did do, though, this week... first let me explain. For those of you that typically are on a Friday night show, okay, I was essentially incapacitated to the point where I'm just now starting to get my voice back. It's a little raspy, but that's okay. It kind of fits into the late night, I guess. But I was so exhausted, guys. I was just wiped out, and I didn't feel as if I could bring the energy and the spunk and be entertaining and host the way that I think you guys deserve. So again, two great members, wonderful people filled in. They did an amazing job, and that was Matt and Judy. So big thanks to them. Again, if you haven't seen our live shows, we got over 300 and some odd videos, maybe 350 live shows and just different videos, cool cover, albums up there, solo albums. It's a great thing, and we love doing it. And of course, don't forget, you can subscribe to our main channel. You can also drop us an email. That's in the description. Join our email member list, dennycoolshow@gmail.com, and become an email member. You get much more perks. We have some challenges and contests that are coming up for our Friday night live events. You're not going to want to miss out on it, because we actually will be giving away real live prizes. And when I mean live prizes, like, it's not fake coins that you can't use anywhere or little emoji gift things. We actually have a store, an online merch store, which I'm going to be making some adjustments to that. But it's DCGshop.online. And there you can find some great apparel, custom-made coffee mug prints, desk mats for your desk, mouse pads. You can have custom logos put on, images, all that fun stuff. It's great. So this week, I reached out to family and friends, and I said, hey, listen, I'm going to be launching live Sunday. I want you, to send me some questions. Ask me some different things, don't be silly about it, but just ask me different questions and send them to me so I can go over them and hopefully answer. Now, I know for many of my friends and family that did respond, they're probably all in bed. That's okay too. But I'm going to go through them and I will try to answer the ones that are appropriate. Again, I'm asking family and friends to do this so I can have some content to work with. My first live episode, guys, I'm going off the cuff and I'm trying to make it work. And again, the pre-recorded, podcast will probably be a little bit more spiced up, because I can edit and do different things with it. But when I do it live, it's probably going to be twice a week, maybe 3 times a week, time depending. I'm just going off the cuff and I'm talking about different things. And then I will open up the phone line and the text line if people have questions. You can also chat here live as well. So a lot of great things. But again, I'm excited to be doing this. Even if one person watches, I'm just happy to be doing it. I love to talk and to express my views and opinions about things, but I do it in a meaningful and a thoughtful way. And again, I keep politics and other things out of it. I just think that there's so much of it. I find that a lot of people just want to get away from it. They don't want to be reminded. You don't have to, as a matter of fact. Just turn on the news. Nothing has really changed when you think about that. The news, topics, headlines, it's constant negative news, right? And if it's important enough, you're going to hear about it. It will find you. If it's a worldly event, you will know about it. That's the first thing I wanted to touch on. I was actually having a conversation with a friend of mine this week, and it was during the snowstorm we got. So, of course, him and I were both up late during this event. And, he was really bothered by a lot of things going on, and I won't get into detail about it, but he's one of those types that he gets affected by everything going on around him. So when he watches the news, it really bothers him to the point where he gets stressed out. He gets a lot of anxiety. He gets, panicked, and then he ends up getting angry and everything. And my advice to him was, if you can't handle that, and if you're bothered by everything going on, the obvious was, don't watch it. You don't need to. There are a lot of people who just can't watch the news because it really angers them. They get emotional about it. So my best advice would be, don't watch it. Again, you'll hear about it. You'll find out about it. Some people just react or handle things differently, stress or whatever, and that's okay. There's no such thing as being a tough guy. Handle what you can, right? And always remember, don't stress about things you can't control. It's just not worth it. So let me get into, I'm excited. This is cool. I actually had to write them down. I didn't want to go through my phone and do it, but I had to write them down. And these are questions, again, from family and friends. Now, I'm kind of thinking to myself, maybe I should have done a little more homework. But I figured, well, it's my first live podcast. I'm going to shoot off the cuff. And the worst thing that can happen, nobody watches it, right? I mean, what's the worst case scenario? Nobody watches it, and then it is what it is. But it don't matter. I still keep doing it because I love doing it. So let's get to it. All right. So what I sent out to family and friends is I did a group thing, and I said, hey guys, I'm doing a live podcast Sunday night. And again, I apologize for the email not being sent. I thought I sent it, but it did not go through for some reason. It was stuck in the drafts. So I sent it tonight when I noticed that. But anyways, I sent out the bulk mail. I said, listen, the bulk text messages. And I said, I'm doing my first ever live podcast, Saturday evening. Why I said Sunday, I don't know. My days are messed up. But Saturday evening, I said, I'd like for you guys to text me some questions. If you're up and you can watch it, great. But text me some questions that you would like for me to answer. What's on your mind? What are you thinking? What are your thoughts? What are your feelings? What do you want to hear from me? And of course, I asked them all to keep it toned down, keep it clean, don't be too silly. But again, it's family and friends. You get what you get, right? So I'm going to start off with some of the answers. I won't name family names or friends, and some of them I will skip. But it's kind of cool because it does give me a little bit of material to work with for my first live event. I don't even have to read the names when I look at the questions. I can pretty much tell you who sent what. Let me see. Okay, so here's one of the questions that was sent to me. This is from a member. It says, I wrote that down wrong, but it's supposed to say, what do you like best about DCG Entertainment? So I assume that you're referring to the Friday night live show. Good question. I think I say it all the time, but what I like best about DCG Entertainment, about our live show on Friday, if that's what you're referring to, I like the people. I like the camaraderie. I love the engagements. I love the community that everybody has built. A lot of people don't know that we started this back in 2022, and we had maybe one subscriber, I think, and it started off with myself initially, but I wasn't live. And then two members who are actually still members. One of them actually is pretty much the vice president, CEO, if you will, and that's John Argent. The other was Blue. She joined for a little bit, but then she had some things that she had to deal with and stuff. And then after that, it was, John and I for a while. But again, this is back in 2022. And so we had like one at the time. And so I said to John, I says, I would love to interview people like live artists and musicians, and I want to do real live interviews, videos. I want to talk about music. I want to ask them how they got inspired, what inspired them, how they started, and that's what we did. And back then, we didn't have this technical equipment and software. I literally was recording sound through a microphone. I was just starting out, and the only thing I knew how to do was just hit live on YouTube. I didn't know all the things. Well, now things have changed too, but so I just hit live, and that was it. There was really no intros, no nothing. The graphics were horrible. The music was, if I could rate it from, 1 to 10, it'd be a 0. It was just that bad. But what was cool is even though we were just starting out, we had just, junk stuff going on at the time. I've seen that people are gravitating towards it, right? That they loved the interaction. And then as time went on, it became more about the engagement. It became more about the people. The music is what got people to the show, right? But then when they were there, it became about the people. When they joined, and then they would chat live and everything, I noticed that it was something started to develop over time. And that was the relationship, the bond that the members started developing. And of course, it always wasn't DCG Entertainment. You know, we had a few different names, but this is what we ended up with now. So at the end of the day, it's really about the people for me with DCG Entertainment. I just really, really admire and love and respect all of the members because they put their heart and soul into it. And even if others aren't being featured, meaning if we're not featuring their performance that night, they're still there. They still support the other members. They encourage them, and you know that's hard to find. You know, you can't make that stuff up. You can't pretend that stuff. It has to happen naturally, and that's what DCG Entertainment is. It's as real as it gets. There's no fakeness to it. We have mistakes that happen live, but it's about the people. It's truly about the people. That's the heart and soul of DCG Entertainment. It has character. It's a living, breathing show. There's nothing fake about it. Believe me, go back and watch some of the shows. So, yeah, I would say the people for sure, absolutely. And then, of course, yeah, the music is great, the entertainment's great, you know, but by far the people. So, thank you for that question. Let me see. Let's move on. And again, guys, as the podcast goes on and as I do more and more, I'll get a little better, I think, as I go. Like anything else, you know, you learn what works and then you learn what doesn't work. So we'll see. And yeah, it's a little bit different than Friday nights, isn't it? Right? Less volume, you know, less hype, I think. But who knows? Maybe we'll have a hyphenated live podcast. I don't know. I'm making it up as I go. Let me see. Here's a question. What's the best job to have? I don't know. And that's actually by a family member. What's the best job to have? I don't know. I would say that varies, right? It really depends on your likes, your character, you know, your personality. Definitely depends on your patience, you know. I don't know. That's a tough one. It's a good question, and it sounds simplistic, but it really comes down to what you enjoy doing, I would guess. I mean, I can't answer that. If you're asking broad like that, I would say that it really depends on the individual. Good question, but and this family member is a younger family member, so I understand the question. But I would say do what you enjoy doing or similar. You know, if you can't find exactly what it is yet that you want to do, try doing something that relates to you, you know, and then I think at some point you'll make a path to find things that are exactly what you want to do, if that makes any sense. So the best job, I don't know, to be honest with you. It's a good question. Let me see. Oh. What do you find funny? Yeah. You know, I would love to say who this is from, but I won't. What do I find funny? I find a lot of things funny. I think people have different personalities when it comes to, say, comedy, right? For example, you can watch a comedian and you can have, 10 people who are just laughing and, hysterics, right? And then you could have another person that's just kind of like, okay, maybe that comedian said something funny here or there, or they said a line that was like, oh yeah, I find that funny, right? But the other 10, they're laughing throughout the whole entire show. And you're that oddball that's just kind of sitting there like, I don't see what's so funny, right? So for me, my funny, it's more like a Jim Carrey funny. I like the goofy, dopey type of funny. You know what I mean? Some people have a dry sense of humor, right? Some have a wet sense of humor. But funny to me also is things that like aren't too, planned, things that just happen. Or for example, right? Here's what I like. Here's what's funny too. Is if you ever watch on YouTube, right, sometimes you see these people, especially like the grandkids. There's this one kid where he pranks his grandmother all the time or his mother, and he'll be walking around with the phone. And I mean, I don't know, it could be dangerous, I suppose, but like he'll scare her, he'll do different things, and they freak out, they yell and they scream. Like, I like stuff like that too. I find that to be funny. Matter of fact, some people, like my wife, for example, and she doesn't do it because she thinks it's hilarious that somebody is falling and getting hurt. But if somebody falls or slips, right, or say they're walking up the stairs and they trip and they have something in their hand, like, she starts laughing hysterically. And it's not because that they could hurt themselves, but it's the act. It's like the motion, the action, I guess, and their facial expressions. She loves the facial expressions. She laughs about that all the time, Like, I can't watch certain movies with her because I would have to pause and then rewind. Pause and rewind. And every time I pause and rewind, she's still laughing throughout the whole entire thing, and then I'd have to go back. So I don't know. If you live with somebody like that or know somebody like that where you cannot sit down and watch a funny movie with them, especially if it's something that they love to watch, that's kind of tough. My funny, when I laugh, like I watched, it was Jim Carrey, Pet Detective, years ago when that come out, and I couldn't stop laughing. His facial expressions, his acting, it was just, for me, like, that was hysterical, So that's my type of funny. Like, I find that stuff funny, and just like sarcasm, funny sarcasm too, is fun, Like, you get two buddies and stuff like that are going back and forth and they're kind of ragging on each other. Like, I find that stuff funny. But I don't know. I guess it really depends on your sense of humor. Let me see. What's your take on strength? You know what? I don't know. On strength. Man, that's so broad. Like, strength of what? Strength, like physical strength? I'm going to put a question mark next to that one because I don't know if that's referring to physical strength or mental strength. Is it easy to let go? Man, you guys are sending me some weird questions. Now, I did read these, but I didn't give them much thought because I wanted to surprise myself. So I didn't really think much on them, but that's okay too. Is it easy to let go? I am guessing that you're referring to, say, forgiveness or harboring resentment or something, just knowing who this person is. That would be my take. And I just want to remind everybody too, right, that the point of my live podcast is it's not to preach, it's not to, give expert advice. I'm no counselor by any means, but again, if I can help somebody and if somebody can feel better, even if they walk away feeling a little uplifted, or even if you laugh at me, that's fine too. Listen, if it brings some joy to you, then I'm all for it. You can laugh with me. You can laugh at me. I don't claim to be anything special, but it's to kind of get people away from all the other stuff. And I'm not putting down any other podcast that does that stuff, right? But that's just not for me. And I may not be the podcast that you want to watch. You may be the type of person that loves watching that stuff and getting involved. And that's okay too. That's your choice, right? But just know that that's not me and that's not my intention. And again, my intention is to hopefully uplift, bring some humor. Hopefully if you're having a bad day, maybe I can make it a little bit brighter. Hopefully I don't depress you or bore you to death. If I do, laugh at it, shrug it off. But to answer this the best way that I can, is it easy to let go? I would have to say, in my best opinion that I can give you, or advice rather, letting go, I think, and that could be referenced to a lot of different things, and I'm going to give you an example. You could probably span that in a number of different ways. So about a month or two back, probably about 2 months ago, we had to put down one of my dogs, Brew. And many of you that already know me, you know how difficult that was. And for many pet owners, if you are a pet owner and you've had to do that, my heart goes out to you. And in terms of letting go that way, that was difficult. That wasn't easy. So referencing, is it easy to let go in that way? Absolutely not. It never is. And I think for me, the hardest thing was he didn't have a say, right? He didn't have control over that. And I think that mentally, that was the hardest thing. Letting go in that sense, it's very, very difficult. And, we struggled with it because you want to pretend that if you can just have 3 more days, 4 more days, 5 more days, that your pet, they're not going to suffer any more than they already are, or you can spend more time with them. So letting go in that sense, it's extremely difficult because you want to do the right thing for your pet, but at the same time, not ignorantly, but you're being selfish in a sense. And this is what I concluded with myself, is that, if I don't let go and do what needs to be done for him, then I'm being selfish in respect that I'm only wanting to keep him around because I don't want to let go. And I know that it was the right thing to do, but it was the hardest thing to do. So letting go in that sense, it's not easy. And, maybe there are people that they can do it and it doesn't bother them to that extent. Me personally, when it's stuff like that, it bothers me. And I think, again, is because he relied upon us. Your pets rely upon you for everything. And so when they don't have control, they can't say how they're feeling, but instinctively and of course the vet verified it, but you are that life support for them, right? And so when you pull that plug on your pet, you feel as if you're taking their right away, but at the same time, you're not. because you're doing what's right for the pet that you love. And so I think letting go that way, it's not easy. For me personally, no, it was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. But I'll tell you, looking back now, I know that it was the right thing to do. And so I think that whether it's doing something like that or something that's similar, if it's the right thing to do and if you're doing it for the right reasons, then I think that in time you'll start to heal. It may take you a while, but don't feel guilty in a sense that you did something wrong, right? Again, remember I said that try not to stress or worry about what you can't control. That is one of them. Unfortunately, when something like that happens, when your pet gets sick or something and you have to make that decision, you can't control that. You can't heal them. You can't make them live longer. You have no control over that. You do have control over doing the right thing. So just remember that you're doing the right thing. As far as other things, I don't know, maybe you can resend me that question again, be a little more specific, because it's such a broad question. It's a good question, but it's broad. I would like to know, more simplistically, are you referring to letting go, like when somebody upsets you, or, aggravation, like whatever. But if you could just kind of, text me that again, or I'll just respond to you and ask you to do that. But again, great question. Great question. Let me see. Are you patient? Are you patient towards others? Okay. Am I patient towards others? Yes. I think that I'm very patient towards others. I think... Okay, I don't want to make it about me, like a Q&A about me. So I'll try to expand it so that it's not referring to me, but I personally am very patient with people. I have a lot of patience. But I do know several people that just have no patience. I understand. And I think that it's one of the more difficult things that people struggle with, is being patient. And there are ways to get better with that. I've always been a very patient and understanding person. But there are exceptions. And some of those exceptions are, I don't have a lot of patience for ignorant people. Somebody who is intentionally ignorant, right? Or mean and crude, or is belittling towards others. I don't have much patience for that. Now, you can extend that a little bit further and probably try to understand why that person is being like that. There must be a reason for it, but that's a whole nother topic. But as far as me having patience, yes, absolutely. But towards people that are intentionally ignorant, no, I don't. And I would say that if you're a person that in general just doesn't have patience for many things, a lot of things, or everything, there are ways or things you can learn to do that help you to become more patient with other people. A lot of people I see, unfortunately and sadly, lose their patience are with, say, elderly people. It's very frustrating on them, especially when it's a day in and a day out thing. And a lot of that is either from family or maybe they work at, nursing homes, right? But they just have no patience for it. And I can understand the frustration, but I can also understand that if you don't have patience for things like that, okay, then don't do it. There are many people who genuinely want to help, with the elderly community or work in nursing homes, but if you're one of those people that just don't have patience to deal with others, especially elderly people, because it's demanding, right? And so if you don't have that mindset to do that, don't do that, because you're hurting yourself, first of all. And most importantly, though, you're hurting the people that you're trying to care for. And so it doesn't do you or that person any good. So I would say, in terms of that, if there's things you don't have patience for, try to take yourself out of that environment or away from that situation. And maybe you're just not suited for that. And I would also say, in my opinion, don't try to force yourself to have patience for something that is just too difficult for you to do, because there may be other reasons why you don't have patience that could be more deep-rooted than what you realize, right? And that comes with a lot of self-discipline, a lot of deep thinking, and I'm personally one that likes to think a lot. I love to ponder on things. And then if I find that there's things that I can be doing better, I'll not so much meditate, but I'll think of ways as to, if it was me, how would I want to be treated, or what is it perhaps that I'm saying or doing wrong that could insult, or that's not being kind to somebody else. And so a lot of that reverts back to your patience. And if you don't have patience for it, take yourself out of it, remove yourself from that environment, and don't do it. And, maybe there's somebody else you can talk to that can help you out with that. Good question, though. Really good question. Let me see here. How do you define success? Ooh, that's a good one. How do I define success? Oh, by the way, speaking about success, I got this super chair. Look at it. Now, as much as I love the other one, it was getting unbearable on my back. And this one, are you guys ready for this? This was the deal beyond deals. My wife and I go out today. We had to get some things. She had to bring a return into one of the department stores. And this one was a Staples. It was, the office store. But she had to return something back to Amazon. So anyways, we went in, and I was looking around, and I seen all these office chairs at the back end. So I said to the guy, help me out. I says, I'm going to go back there. I said, I want to look at your chairs and see what you guys have and stuff. Now, normally, they're executive chairs. They're like $200 or $300. And I'm not paying that much money for a chair. Granted, they're comfortable, but still not paying that much. So I go over there, and I see this chair. Well, I see this one, and then I see another one. And I'm sitting in them both. Now, one was black, this one was gray. Identical chairs, identical, manufacturer, everything. But this one, it was on clearance. It was $269. Then they brought it down to $119. So I got the guy's attention, and I said, where are these chairs? You guys have any more left? He says, no, this is the only one we have. He goes, this is a floor model. I said, oh. I said, so you're asking $119 for the floor model? And he goes, no, not at all. He goes, make me an offer. Now, this is in Staples. So I said, you want me to make you an offer? He goes, yeah, make me an offer. So my wife, she turns around and says to the guy, she goes, I'll give you $40. Now, it's a floor model. I mean, yeah, people sat in it and stuff, but it's a floor model. It's already, like worked in. It's no assembly required. Guy says, done. So I got this chair right off the floor, rolled it out, put it in the Jeep for $40. It's a leather gray exec chair. To get the tilt on it and everything else. But I got it for $40. It's a floor model. So, I mean, that was cool. I had to share that with you guys and I like how it creaks, makes that sound when you're leaning back. It's a leather creaking together. But yeah, $40, guys, at Staples. Let me see. Okay, so how do you define success? All right. I got to take a drink for this one. Good question. There are many ways that people define success, but I will answer it in the way that I define success. First, let me tell you that success, in my opinion, doesn't come from money. It's not about having the best of the best. It's not about the job. It's not about the house you live in, the car you drive, your material status. That's my opinion. Again, success is defined in many different ways from many different people. And if your opinion of success differs, that's okay too. That's your thoughts and your opinions. Mine, however, is I always say, and I told my kids this, that if you love doing what you're doing, when you put a thought in your head that whether that's you want to be a school teacher, whether you want to own your own business, say if you wanted to be a gas attendant or a bus driver or whatever, when you start working towards that goal, okay, you are already a success. And you may ask, well, how is that a success? Because you have a goal in mind. And the second you start working towards that goal, you are progressing towards what it is that you want to do, that what you love to do. It doesn't matter what it is. And success doesn't come from how much money you're making. It's kind of like, in order to be successful, okay, in order to reach that success in life, several things have to happen. Is you cannot and never will be successful until you fail. Did you ever hear somebody say, I never fail at things, or everything they do is perfect? Now, they obviously, I don't know, are talking through the other side of their mouth, but it's impossible. It is totally impossible. In order to be successful, in order to achieve or to reach accomplishments, you have to fail. There's just no way around it. And so I think a lot of people get confused when they're trying to do something and they find that every time they're doing something, they keep stumbling or they fail. They'll fall flat on their face, right? And they think by doing that they're not succeeding or they're not successful. And that's not true. It's just the opposite. If you didn't try, if you didn't attempt to do something, then you can never achieve success. And most importantly, you're never going to fail. You can't fail at something that you're not doing, right? So when people say that they don't fail, they're full of it. If they're doing something in life that's worthwhile to them, they have to fail. It's just a rule. It's a law. You can't succeed without failing. It's impossible. It's kind of like, going to your fireplace and saying, give me heat, but you don't put the wood in it, right? It's like you're putting success before failure, and it doesn't happen. You've got to put the failure before the success. And I think that if you realize and understand that in order to succeed in life, no matter what it is you're doing, no matter what job it is you're doing, if you set that goal and if you go after what it is, doesn't matter, but what it is that you love and you want to do in life, you're starting off as a success. And you have to fail. Failure it's just the process of learning. It's the process of achieving. And don't ever feel throughout life that you can do it all by yourself. That is such BS. One thing that drives me insane is that when people say, I've never received help in my life, you're lying. Well, you're lying to yourself. At some point in your life, and there's many times you just probably don't acknowledge it, when you're doing something, you will receive help. It doesn't matter who you are. It's inevitable. You're going to. Doesn't matter what it is, you're going to receive help. And again, when you're on that way to fulfilling your dream, fulfilling your goal, in order to achieve success, you have to fail. It's impossible not to. But failing is a good thing. Without failure, there is no success. So for me, that's how I would say, or I would define success, is doing what you love, enjoying what you do. That equals success. And of course, yes, I mean, if you're in the real world, yes, it has to sustain you. You have to eat, you have to pay bills or whatever. But at the end of the day, if you're doing what you love, that is successful. If you're happy, and most importantly too, I always tell people, it's not all about the things you're doing, but it's all about how you treat other people. And I say it at the closing of our show, on our other show live, Friday nights. I always tell people, be kind to others, but most importantly, be kind to yourself. And it sounds repetitive, but by being kind to others, you may not think that you're having an impact on somebody, and you may not affect that person that day, the following day, the day after. But I'll tell you what you are doing is you're having an impact on yourself. Because what you're doing subconsciously is you're repeating that kindness. Whether that person accepts it or not is irrelevant. You're repeating those words, that thought, that action. And so when you are kind to others, it's kind of like you're being kind to yourself, right? Negative people hang around with negative people. So if you're positive and if you're kind to others, then that's what you're going to attract. If you're negative, you're going to attract that as well. So I always say, be kind to others. And again, that person may not accept it right away. Down the road, they may. But most importantly, you've got to be kind to yourself. And it's easier to be kind to yourself when you're kind to other people. You see, that's the trick. Being kind to other people allows you to be kind to yourself. And sometimes it's hard. It's not easy to do that. I understand that. But that would be my best advice and opinion on how I define success. Doing what you love, being happy, and of course, being respectful and kind to others in life. And those things, I think, will help you go a long way and to help you really find what your success is. Very good question. I mean, you can go on and on and on about that stuff, right? It's just it's a great conversation piece, and hopefully, as the show goes on, like I said, I'll open up the lines. I'd love to have some live calls and actually talk with people. I think that'd be cool. Trying to explain it myself, it's a little more difficult when you don't have that camaraderie back and forth. But again, guys, it's my first live talk podcast, so I'm doing my best here, working off of questions that I've asked family and friends to send me in via text, and I appreciate that. And again, my voice is a little raspy, so I do apologize. Let me see. Let's move on here. Okay, we've already answered that one. Can you tell me a bedtime... can you read me a bedtime story? Your voice puts me to sleep. Okay, I'm going to tell you who that one was. That was my mother. That'd be like her to send me a question like that. Can I read you a bedtime story? My voice puts you to sleep. Well, be honest with you, I may put you to sleep, but I don't know if it's going to be from my voice. I don't hear it. I've heard people say that to me. Not that it puts them asleep, but I don't hear that in my voice. It's a compliment. Thank you, but I don't hear that in my voice. But and I don't know what bedtime story to tell you, Ma. I really don't. Like, you want me to read you a book? I don't understand. But I'll think of one. Maybe I can write one. Maybe I'll make one up. Maybe I'll make you up a bedtime story, and I'll have to read it to you if that helps you. So we read that question. It's kind of weird when you're doing a live talk podcast versus what I do on Friday nights with the live entertainment, okay? There's such a stark difference between them. Again, the live shows on Fridays with the music, the entertainment, everybody's live. Then we have the Zoom video. There's so much going on, right? The excitement of it it like energizes you. Doing this is a little different. You can hear the little ambient music in the background. I wanted it to be calm, relaxing, So it's a little weird in a sense because I'm completely opposite from our Friday nights, right? This is something that for all of you probably are not used to. And you may never get used to it, and that's okay. It does not insult me. Trust me. I'm just happy to finally be doing this. I've procrastinated long enough, and I've got to try it. Hence, failure, success. If I don't try, I'm never going to fail in order to see if I can succeed at it, right? But I'm not the type of person that stubs my toe and just sits down. I got to break it a couple times before I get it through my thick head. What was your favorite job? Ooh, that's a good question. What was my favorite job? I've had a lot of them, to be honest with you. I really did. I would say if you're asking like job, like a 9-to-5 job, like I punched in and actually got paid for it type of job, because I've owned several businesses throughout my life. So I'll use a job type of thing, a 9-to-5 job. It's a really good question. I would have to say it's when I worked at the law firms, one in particular. I loved I loved picking the brains from the attorneys around me. Now, they weren't in the same section or the same area I was in. I was this little peon out in a little cubicle area. But there was this one attorney in particular that worked at this company I worked at. And I befriended him throughout the time I was there. He was an older gentleman. But it was really cool because during my breaks, I'd go talk to him. And during my lunch, I got to sit down. And he was kind enough to take the time to sit and talk with me. And I learned a lot because I've always loved law. I taught myself real estate law and, a bunch of consumer laws and all that stuff. But I loved to listen to him because the guy was so knowledgeable, but he was so kind too. He was just like this walking law dictionary, and it was great. I didn't have to sit there and read. I'm more of a visual learner. Probably many of you are, where you can either watch something or you hear something and you pick up quicker that way. That's me. But I would listen to him and we'd sit there and, have our talks during my lunch break. And what I loved best about it too, so when I was at this law firm, my supervisor at the time, he was a complete tool bag. He really was. This guy was just a jerk. He despised me so bad. And it's probably because, not for nothing, but because of the fact that he was a tool bag. And I, hands down, I was definitely 10 times just smarter than this guy when it came to doing what we were doing. We did federal collections and all that stuff, right? But it varied. Then we got into many different things, working with, courts and all that stuff. But my supervisor, he would get upset because he'd walk by and see me sitting in this attorney's office. Now, this attorney, he was one of the main attorneys for the entire company. And when I got done, I'd go back into my little cubicle, and he'd come up to me and, man, he'd write me up and start yelling at me and all that stuff, But what was cool was they couldn't do anything because they would complain, and then the attorney would speak up on my behalf, and he would say, I asked Denny to come in and talk to me. I had a question for him. And, it was neat. So that was probably like my favorite job, I think, because I learned so much. I met really cool people there, some not so much, but especially that attorney. He was really cool. He was very kind to me, and I loved to do the law. I loved doing what I was doing, and I more importantly loved helping people on the other end, especially when you're getting a call from a law firm. You're scared out of your wits. But I was able to work with people and kind of get them back on the right path, and I loved doing that, so that was probably one of my better jobs. The other one would be when I was younger, actually. I was like, 13, 14 years old. My mom at the time, she was the vice president of, it's called New England Micronetics at the time. This is going back years. And she was the vice president of this electronics company. And they made these little computer chips that go like in the missiles and all that stuff. And there I learned how to solder and, build computer boards and chips and microprocessors. And I would do all the soldering. And then the other room where the machine shop was, they had this booth. And in the booth, it was this liquid gold where you would take the boards and these little components and you put them in like a French fry rack type of thing. And you drop it in, and you'd gold plate these things. I used to do quarters. I'd take off my chain. I'd throw them in there, gold plate them. That was a fun job for me to have too, because I was young and I loved doing electronics. I love geeky stuff like that. But yeah, so that's a toss up. But that was a good job too. But as far as like 9 to 5 jobs that I punched in and out for, I'd have to say that the law firm and then the electronics job, that was pretty cool. Let me see. Yeah, we got a couple more here. Some of them I just kind of scratched out. I love my family, but some of them were just ridiculous. I've already answered that one. Let me find one here, guys, that I can answer for you. Let me see. I still don't know. I'm going to have to text him and find out. Do you find it easy to forgive others? Yes. I know it's a tough pill to swallow for many people, but yes. Forgiveness is tough. And again, I'm not, preaching, lecturing, or anything. This is my opinion. This is how I deal with it. This is how I look at things. It may not work for everybody, but this is me. Forgiveness is tough. And it really boils down to on what you're trying to forgive, who you're trying to forgive, why you're forgiving. Forgiving, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're dismissing an action or something that was done against you, okay? A lot of people, I think, they allow for their pride to get in the way, not ignorantly, but some people take the stance that if you do wrong by me, then that's it. They write you off. They don't forget it. They'll never forgive you, whether it be a lie, deception, whatever it is. So for a lot of people, forgiveness is very, very difficult. They have a hard time accepting that what somebody else did to them, especially if it's a close friend, a family member, or, it could be somebody in a relationship. And I don't give relationship advice. I stay out of that field. But forgiveness for a lot of people, it's tough. And I understand that it's tough. Me personally, I look at it that we all make mistakes. And sometimes when somebody does something, I tend to look at it a little bit differently as to when somebody makes a mistake or when somebody does wrong to me. At first, yes, the anger, the hurt, disbelief, everything kicks in. But the cooler head prevails. And for a lot of people, that's a difficult thing. What I do is I'll give it some time, okay? And for a lot of people, it takes probably more time. And some people, they don't let go. But for me, I give it time. And what I do is I think, okay, why did that person do this? Or why did that person say this, right? And I try to, and I know it's going to sound weird for a lot of people, and that's okay. But what I try to do is I try to put myself in a situation of the sin or the act that was against me, and I put myself in that situation and say, what would cause me to say or do something like that to somebody I care about. Why would I do that? And the reason I do that is because a lot of times it doesn't mean that it's justified. It doesn't mean that when somebody does you wrong, okay, or if you want to call it sinning against you or betrays you, whatever, it doesn't mean that it's acceptable. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is I put myself in that situation as that person, and then I try to understand what would cause somebody to do that or say something. And a lot of times I can't figure it out, but I try. And the reason I do that, guys, is because for me, I'm always thinking that if this person did this, was it intentional? Was it premeditated? Did it happen by accident? Did I say or do something prior or lead or say or do something that led up to this action? Whether they said something that you may find unforgivable or they did something that you may find unforgivable. Did I do or say something to cause, it doesn't make it right, but to cause this person to take that action against me? And many times I find that there were events or things that were said that could have triggered this person to react the way they did towards me or say what they said towards me. And again, not justifying it. It doesn't make it right. Hurting somebody intentionally never makes it right. But I try to put myself in their situation, and I try to understand what could have caused them to do that. And then once I get past that point and I can somewhat understand how they could do that or why they would do that, then comes the part for me where I go into compassion. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, once I get past the understanding of it, as to why I think they may have done that, then I turn into the compassionate one. My compassion goes towards that person that actually did the wrong. And the reason I do that is because if this is something that they do, right, or if it's something that they find that's justifiable, and if it was something that was done with intent, whatever I figure out the reason is, I feel bad for them. Because, yeah, they may have hurt me and upset me, and it will be hard for me to forgive them, but I feel bad for them. I have compassion for them because they're not really hurting me. They hurt my feelings, or they may have betrayed me, but I feel bad for them because they can't forgive themselves for whatever reason it is, and for whatever reason they felt that they had to maliciously hurt somebody else, right? So when somebody does wrong by you, or they say something to you that offends you or that hurts your feelings, take the time. And again, this is how I deal with it, but that's the question that was asked. This is how I deal with it. I take time. I give it some thought. I try to understand what caused them to say or do what they did. And then I go into compassion mode where, after time has passed, I feel bad. And this, of course, is situational. It really depends on what it is. It depends. And there's a lot of times, too, maybe you are one of those people that just gets angry and just you just exclude them out of your life. You just let it go. You rid them from your life. You never talk to them again. And there are people that are like that. But maybe you're one of those people that when somebody says or does something to you, it eats at you day in and day out, day in and day out. And then what you do is you blame yourself, because now you're thinking you must have done something so bad that could cause somebody to say or do something like that to you. So again, that's why I say, for me, I try to think of what caused them or what led up to this point. And then what I would typically do is, after I give it some time, is I go out of my way to try to talk to that person. You know, I'll do it little by little. I'll approach them or whatever it is, small talk. And if their attitude or mindset is still the same, if their aggression or action is still the same towards me as it was, then that's when the compassion comes in. Because if they don't have compassion enough to either say I'm sorry, or they're really repentant about what they did, or they don't have any remorse, then I feel compassion for that person. Because they're not hurting me in the long run. They're hurting themselves. And so you've got to feel bad for somebody actually who acts like that and who does that to other people. And understand, you're probably not the only person that they offended or hurt or, did something wrong towards. There could be other people, right? So I try to throw that compassion in there. But at the end of the day, time, in my opinion, I think it heals all things. But it takes two, right? The effort has to be reciprocated both ways. So if you're trying to extend yourself, another person just says, you know what? I don't care. I don't care what I said to you. I don't care what I hurt you. You deserved it, or whatever. Then sometimes you're a better person, and you will feel better for letting go of that anger, letting go of the hatred, letting go of the anxiety. Don't hold on to that grudge. It's very unhealthy. Being negative is very unhealthy. It's a proven fact. It's a study. It takes more energy, wasted energy, to be negative than it does to be positive. That's a fact. So when somebody does something against you, towards you, says something that hurts your feelings, it's going to sting, it's going to hurt. But it won't ruin your life. You, in time, will heal, and it may leave a little scar for you. But don't let it bring you down to the point where you just harbor resentment towards that person. As much as it hurts, again, throw compassion towards that person. You know what? I feel sorry for you. I had an episode like that, or rather an incident not too long ago with family that happened. And unfortunately, I love that person. Very, very close to me. I love that person. Always will. But I feel bad for that person, because this person has a negative view, a very angry view, and if I don't side or agree with that person's opinions on certain things, then that person gets very angry, opinionated, and as a matter of fact. And so I feel bad, because that's their attitude towards life. So if I stayed angry and just dwelled on it, I'm the one who's suffering, not that person. It doesn't bother them. It doesn't affect them. It affects me. So why should I let what they say or do or did to me bother me? It won't. I'll remember it, yes. And it'll smart me up for, if something happens again. But I just don't let it build up, and I don't hold resentment and hatred towards people. Again, it takes more energy, guys. And you can get sick physically and mentally from holding resentment and harboring hatred. It's just not worth it. Again, that's my opinion. But the fact of it is, and this is a fact, it does take more energy to be negative than it does to be positive. That's a good question. And I thank you for that question. As a matter of fact, that was well intended too. Yeah, it was a really good question. So far, we've had some good questions. And again, I thank my family and friends for doing this. I was looking for some content for my first live, talk podcast, Late Night with Denny Cool. And again, guys, I'm going to have different content, right? But for the first show, I kind of just wanted to talk, go over some things, kind of give you a little balance of what the show is going to be like. What would be cool too is, like, I love talking about weird things, right? Things that just don't make sense to people, and I love to try to figure that out. A lot of people have this I don't know, what is it? This addiction with, now, nothing wrong with it. Don't get me wrong. But like this addiction to, like, I don't know, cryptids and all different weird stuff, right? And they're so engaged in it, And me, I find it fascinating because I can't explain it. I don't have answers for it, right? So that stuff intrigues me. And then I'll research, and I find a lot of it's just like repetitive stuff, But I love to look into weird stuff like that. I may never find out the answers for a lot of things that I question in regards to that stuff, but it's very interesting. It truly, truly is interesting. I've seen things that, honestly, I have no answers for. I could make something up, but it's not going to give me any closer to an answer. So I love talking to other people about it. I love to hear their opinions about different things. And some of it makes sense. Some of it doesn't make sense. There are some things, though, that I can revert to and I can read that actually disprove what it is, right? But then there are other things that I just can't. It's just like, kind of blows my mind. But so those are the other cool things I like to talk about too. And then again, like I said, I do apologize for the email not being sent Thursday. But hey, you know what? It is what it is. And I will make sure next time, though, to make sure that email gets sent, because I would love for people to call in, give them like a 3 or 4 minute time slot or whatever it is, and talk with them live, have them ask me questions, and hopefully I can come up with some great answers. Maybe something's bothering somebody, and I don't know, maybe I can say something that makes them feel a little bit better. Who knows, right? Or maybe they just want to have a fun conversation. Or one of the best things that I find about conversating is I love to listen. A lot of people have a hard time doing that these days, don't they? But I don't. I love to listen. And I think sometimes that it's all somebody needs. There's so much of, I don't know, crap, I guess, right, to put it lightly. There's so much crap, that you kind of get confused with what's what, right? And that's okay. So sometimes, if you're not somebody that can give out great advice, and there's no such thing as perfect advice, but if you're not somebody that, can give out great advice, I would say that being there for somebody, being a good friend, being supportive, it doesn't always have to be that you have to be that person to give sound advice or that you always have answers, right? And it doesn't matter whether you're a parent, whether you're the kid, the brother, uncle, friend, whatever. A lot of being supportive comes from just listening to somebody. Sometimes somebody just needs to vent. They just need to get it off their chest. They just need to express how they feel. You don't have to agree with them. In fact, I mean, you don't even have to, understand, but just let them vent, guys. Let people vent, get it off their chest. Again, you don't have to always give advice. You don't always have to give your opinion. Maybe they don't want your opinion. Maybe they just want you to just listen to what they have to say, right? And sometimes the best answer, the best advice you can give somebody is just not saying anything at all. Just say, listen, I'm here for you. I'll listen to you. I may not have an answer for you, but I'll listen to you. And you'll find that at the end of that, when they're done ranting, when they're done venting and doing whatever they need to do to get things off of their chest, by the time they're done, they're pretty much going to forget about why they were angry, why they were upset. I mean, it's still in their mind, but it's not going to be as vibrant, right? They're going to start feeling better. And then you're going to notice that by the time they're done, and by the time you start talking with that person again, when they're done, venting, that their tone is going to switch. Their attitude is going to switch. And it's going to switch to something that's a little more positive, a little more upbeat. Because that poison, that toxicity that they've been holding in, they were able to release that. It may not have solved their problem. It may not have gave them the answers they were looking for. That's okay. But what it did is it allowed them to vent and get that off of their mind. It made them feel better that somebody is actually listening to them. And a lot of times, more often than not, that's all people want, is for somebody just to listen to them. You don't have to agree, but just listen to them, guys. That's probably the best advice I could ever give, is that if you ever want to help somebody and you don't know the answers, or maybe you're too afraid of giving the wrong advice because you're uncertain, that's okay. You don't have to, but just listen to somebody. Just be open-minded and just hear them out. All right? That's the best advice I can give. If you truly want to help somebody, just listen. It's not hard. If they're yelling, hold the phone away from your ear. Or if you're up front, you know what I mean? But just listen. And that's a way to be kind to others too. You can be kind to others by just being there and just listening. And one other thing before I close out this live podcast. If you have a family, a friend, or even a neighbor, okay, be a person of doing. And what I mean by that is, if you know of somebody that needs help, maybe they're struggling and they're having a little bit hard time this month, or they fell onto hard times, and maybe you can cook them a meal, or help them with laundry or something, whatever it is, right? But if you know that somebody's struggling and going through a difficult time, if you can, go out of your way just to offer a little bit of help. Just do something that helps them out a little bit. It doesn't have to be a lot. Like I said, maybe they're too prideful to ask for help, because a lot of people are. But be that better person, in a sense, where that somebody is in need of help. Okay, but you're waiting for them to ask. Don't wait for them to ask. Just offer it. Just go over and offer your services. Help them out. Maybe you're a person that has a lawnmower and their yard needs cleaning up. Maybe you can mow their lawn for them. Something simple. I know it sounds crazy, but doing that a little bit, just doing, goes a long, long way with people. It really, really does. Okay? And, you're not going to offend somebody by helping them. And if they get offended, okay, well then you know what? They're not the person that accepts help. And unfortunately, You did what you thought was right. So listen. You don't have to say anything. And if you know somebody's in dire straits or they need help with something, help them, whatever it is you can do. Like I said, cook them a meal or whatever. It doesn't matter, right? But offer your help. Don't wait for somebody to ask. Just do it. Okay? Again, guys, I am Denny Cole, and this is Late Night with Denny Cole. And I want to thank everybody who watched, and hopefully you can watch this. And again, as I go, I'll learn more. I hope to fail a bunch of times so I can figure out what works, and I'll open up the phone lines and stuff, and we'll have something that will be announced way ahead of time. All right, so you guys can join me. Maybe you can jump into the live chats and everything, and then maybe, give me a call. And again, maybe you just want to talk, or something's bothering you, or you just want to say hi or whatever. Please do that. I'd love to hear from you. But again, this is Season 1, Episode 1 of Late Night with Denny Cole. This will be on DCG Entertainment, all right? So we will see everybody, all of our members, live this coming Friday. We're already into February. Can you believe it, guys? Just think, a few more months, this winter stuff is over. A few more months. Look at this. Just as I said that, these late bloomers, we have Kat and Richard. Guys, should I say good morning to you? You just saw the link? I know. You know what happened, Richard? I sent the link out Thursday. But what happened was, when I was checking my emails, I noticed they were still in the draft folder. And so I just kind of re-edited and sent it again. And I was a little bit hesitant about doing it because I barely had a voice Friday night. But I figured, you know what? I've got to do this and stop procrastinating. And I said, I don't really have any content. So what I did during the week was I sent out bulk emails to family and friends. And I said, hey, listen, give me some content. Ask me some questions. Here's what I'm doing. And I want to have some material to work with. I want to fly off the cuff, right? And so that's what I was doing for these last couple hours. It's my first live podcast, talk podcast. Something different. It's a little bit weird from the hyped up live Friday shows. It's more laid back, more relaxed, but I love it. And I'm going to keep doing it until it sticks, till I figure out the mechanics behind it. But I'm glad you two popped in. That's really, really cool. I didn't think anybody was going to be up this late. Hence why it's called Late Night with Denny Cole. It's not called Early Night. But, yeah, I had some... Yeah, thanks, Richard. Yeah, I appreciate it, man. And like I said, I'm going to be doing... some pre-recorded ones, right, where it's going to be, content edited. I mean, for obvious reasons, and I can add and do different things. But what I'm really excited about is when I do the live ones. Oh, you're at work? Nice. Oh, yeah. Well, it's 1 o'clock my time. Okay, I got you. So you're listening at work. I didn't know what you heard or how long you've been listening, but my mom wrote me this question. Well, she texted me this question. She says, can you read me a bedtime story? Your voice puts me to sleep. Richard, I don't know what to make of that. Do I bore my mother? Am I putting my mother to sleep? You just sit around till 5 a.m.? That's not a bad gig. Like I said, depends on what you're doing, though, right? I mean, if you're just sitting around till 5 a.m. One could get bored, though, I guess. No, she did. And, Richard, I don't know how to take that, I was trying to cover as many things as I could tonight. But I'll tell you what. And I said it in the beginning of my show, Whether one person watches, nobody watches it, that's okay. Uh, I love doing this stuff. I love talking about different subjects and kind of sharing my thoughts and opinions about things. And hopefully as it gets going, and if people call in and stuff, and of course it will be announced much earlier ahead of time. Like I said, it was in draft for some reason, but it'd be great to have people call in. It really would. But I love doing it. And if people call in, and if they just want to vent about something, and they can be anonymous, they don't have to give their names. They can just get stuff off their chest. Or we can talk about weird things. Matter of fact, I was just mentioning earlier, right, that I'm intrigued by the lure of like different things like Bigfoot and all that stuff. Like, I don't have answers to it. I have opinions and thoughts on what I think things are, but I love to talk with different people and get their opinions and takes on what they think stuff is, right? Well, thanks. Yeah, I wanted to do something that, not that I don't love hosting our Friday night shows, but I also love to do exactly what it is that you're hearing now, which is talking, which is discussing things, like just open monologue, open discussions, kind of cuffing it, or winging it, or whatever, going off the cuff, however they say it, I don't know. But nothing pre-scripted, I'll find content that I find interesting. And, much like our shows, we don't get, political stuff involved. I think there's enough. If people want that, I think, Richard, that there's so many podcasts. And, I mean, just flip on the news, whatever, people can get that anywhere. But I want this podcast to be about positive influence, fun influence, good conversation. And what's weird, Richard, is it's hard to find, and I looked, there are several that don't get involved in that stuff, right? And they're very popular podcasts, too. They do really, really, really well because people are attracted to that, right? They want to get away from that crap. But for the most part, like the other stuff, man, the negative stuff, it's so popular. It's like it's this drug. People just, they feed off of it, right? And so I wanted to do something that's completely opposite. Even if I read a book, Little Red Riding Hood, it's different. And I was afraid that if I did it tonight so early, that I wouldn't have the voice because it's still a little raspy, as you can tell. But I said, you know what, man, I'm going to do it anyways. But I think I know what my mom meant, by that. I don't think it was an insult. My mom always tells me all the time, she goes, I could just listen to you talk. She goes, for hours. She goes, I love hearing your voice. Now, what's weird about that is I don't hear that in my voice, but she does. Several other people do. It's kind of weird. But you have to read her book. So you listen to a lot of podcasts that are not political influenced in any way. Yeah. Perfect voice for the wolf. Right? See, Richard? See, that's what's cool, man. You know what, though? There are a lot of podcasts that are very popular, right? That do have a lot of positivity. They're non-confrontational, and a lot of them are, pre-records, which is great too because you can edit content and all that stuff. But they're uplifting, you know what I mean? And it just kind of gets your mind away from all of that rhetoric going on. And so I think that for me, that's the path that I want to take. I've had several people tell me, well, you can't do a podcast, a talk podcast, without involving stuff going on. And, well, yeah, you can. You know, it's one of those things, I think that, in my opinion, I think that people want that, right? I think that people want to get their minds off of it. I said earlier in my podcast, you know, that negativity begets negativity. You know, it's so hard for a lot of people to be positive, but the fact is that it takes more energy to be negative than it does to be positive. That is a fact. We do need a lot more positivity in the world. Yeah, if anybody's out there listening and not watching, but Richard, actually, who's a member, and so wasn't Kat, he just typed that we definitely need a lot more positivity in the world right now, and he's absolutely right. You know, whether my voice puts you to sleep, irritates you, whatever, I agree with that. And if you're listening to my voice, yeah, the positivity, it's a much needed, what's the word I'm looking for? I'll just put, it's greatly needed. It's so easy to spiral down that negative road than it is to be positive. And I can definitely understand, Richard, how that can happen. Yeah, I know, putting you to sleep, huh? Well, that's good. See, you're at work, you're sitting there till 5 a.m., right? And by the time you're done listening to my voice, Richard, you're going to go to sleep. You know what my mom told me, though? Well, actually, and my wife said this, too. She said, you know what you should do? She said, you should tell a story. She goes, write up a story. She goes, and just tell a soothing story. She goes, and I'll guarantee you, she goes, that you'll put people to sleep. She goes, but make it specific for nighttime so people can put it on and then they can fall asleep listening to it. So apparently, Richard, my voice puts people to sleep. That's what I'm getting, is that if I talk, now I don't know if it's the content or if it's just my voice is so boring to listen to, but that's what my mom said. My wife said that too. She goes, you can just put me to sleep. She goes, just talk, tell a story, write something up. So I don't know, I might do that. But I'm glad you guys joined. That's really, really cool. I honestly didn't think anybody would be up. Yeah, campfire stories, Richard. Remember those, man, growing up? I don't know if you guys were big. You seem like you'd be like a... Well, you are an outdoors guy anyways. I know that. You definitely are an outdoors type of guy, especially judging by your videos. Oh, and thank you for that, man. I appreciate that. I do have a soothing voice. Maybe that's what my mom meant, but she said it. I don't know, Richard. I don't hear it, to be perfectly honest with you. The man with the golden arm. I don't hear it. You know, it's kind of like when you sing, right? We are our own worst critics, I guess. You know, and I'm the same. Like, I don't hear my voice in the way other people do. Just like, you know, when you're singing, you don't hear it the way other people do, which I guess isn't a bad thing. No, but you still like the outdoors, though. You know what I mean? And that's the point of it, right? Is that when I was growing up, Richard, you know, of course, back then, family, well, our family, I mean, we have a huge family on both sides. We had 9 aunts and 9 uncles, like 18 total. It's insane, not to mention 200 plus cousins. But anyways, growing up as kids, aside from my aunts, my uncle, my mom, everybody being all musically inclined, my grandmother, my grandfather, when we had family reunions, it was insane. We used to rent out this entire place, up in, it was called the Anchorage. It was up in Lincoln, up right on Lake Winnipesaukee. Okay, beautiful, overlooked the lake. And it was like, oh, I want to say like 80 cabins or something like that. It was, but anyways, our family would every year would rent them all out, and it'd be packed with family. It was insane. And the greatest thing I loved about it, it was from a Friday to a Sunday. Everybody would bring food, all the great aunts and uncles and everybody. They'd all bring food. And we'd have this spread right on the deck. The deck overlooked the water, and it kind of went out about 100 feet onto the lake, right? And so we'd all bring the tables out there, and at the time my uncle would bring his equipment. He would DJ and stuff. We'd have dances out there, and then we'd have this big bonfire, and everybody would sit around the bonfire. My grandfather, my uncles, my mom, everybody break out the guitars, the harmonicas, and we'd all sing songs. You know, we'd all sit around the big campfire, and we'd just sing, like all hours of the night. And then we all had these blankets next to us as kids, right, on the grass. And we'd all lay down, and you'd just watch the fire, the flames, you know, and listen to your aunts, your uncles, and everybody singing. It was the best thing in the world, man. Yeah, it was. It was awesome. You know, we grew up with that, camping and doing that family stuff, Richard. We all grew up with that. And then, of course, as we got older, we had kids. We kept that going. My daughter grew up doing that stuff. Both of my girls did, you know. And then it got to a point where the younger generation, you know, the older generation, you know, started passing on and stuff like that. And so nobody really kept up with it, which is a shame. But they ended up selling that campground anyways. But it was amazing, man. It was, you know, it was really great times. There was no such thing as glamping, you know. The most glamorous thing we had, Richard, were the cabins. My cabin, because my grandfather, he'd bunk up with me and my mom, so we had the best cabin. It was, you know, 3 bedrooms. Our cabin was right on the water, literally. It was like 50 feet, you know, from the water. It was all beachfront. And we had a fireplace in it. We were the only cabin, aside from the main cabin up on the hill, right, where my great aunts stayed. We were the only cabin to have a fireplace in it. And I only got that because I was like my grandfather's favorite, you know. So I would bunk with him, my mom, and it was awesome. I mean, it was the best times ever. You'd get up at, I don't know, whenever you got up, 5:36 in the morning. The aunts all started cooking breakfast, right? And, you know, all the uncles are getting ready for the 45, you know, card tournaments that they would all have and stuff, you know. So you'd get up, you'd have a big spread breakfast, bacon, eggs, ham, pancakes. I mean, you name it, man. The tables upon tables of just food, dude. It was insane. Yeah, it was insane. But Richard, you know, that's when families, big families, well, back then they had big families, right? That's when big families did things together as a family, you know? And I'm not saying that it doesn't exist now, but it's far few and in between, you know? And those are probably the best years of my life, was when I spent time outdoors, camping. You had no technology, nothing. Your cell phones didn't even work out there. You had to use the main house phone, you know, if there was an emergency or something, because we were so far out in the woods next to the mountains. But it was awesome. You know, you're waking up and you see the sunrise right over the lake, and you see the mountains behind it. It was the best time ever, man. Oh, we had such a good time, you know. But you don't realize that bond, right, that you had. And then after all that stopped, right, the irony of it all is that when all that stopped, as years went by, the family just became like, from this tight bond, they just kind of started separating like that. It's kind of like this little tremor, right? And it started growing to this earthquake where everything started separating and splitting apart, and it was sad, really. So your wife's side used to have family get-togethers until the senior generation passed on. Yeah. Yep, you're right. Exactly. That's what happened. Yeah. Yeah, the senior generation. That's a good way to put that. Yeah. The great aunts and uncles, when they started passing on, my aunts and uncles, they did it for a little while, but then, after that, they kind of got exhausted from it, and they left it up to our generation. And, at that time, we were in our early 30s, and we just didn't keep up with it, to be honest with you. And there's a part of me that regrets that. Like, if out of anything I regret, Richard, it's not doing that. And my sister wanted to do it, but it just wasn't the same either, I think, too, right? It was just, I don't know, it just seemed so much funner when you would just show up and bring food, or, bring your guitar or whatever and stuff, right? But when we had to do it, it just didn't seem the same, man. It was so different. Yeah, I agree with you. There's too many distractions. You know what? You're absolutely right on that. There are far too many distractions. That's a really good point right there. Um, yeah, because I mean, even back then, when I was in my 20s, I think we stopped doing it when I was probably in my mid to late 30s. Really is when it stopped. Yeah, we were going there for 30 plus years. Um, but you're absolutely right, though. You know, all these distractions. And then, of course, uh, you think you get closer, but the reality is you don't. You actually get spread further apart. And then, of course, you get technology. Everybody gets a little bit older. So with that, right, maybe you got married or people are having kids and stuff who didn't before. And so distractions come in, maybe your job, your career change, whatever it is, and then one person can't make it, that person can't make it. Yeah, that's a good point, man. Yeah, back then, distractions, they were different types of distractions, Richard. They're not or aren't the same distractions that we have now. If you were stressing out back then, it could have been because you lost a job, you had to find another one, or, personal things. But today, right, distractions are a lot of it's media distractions, social media hype, things like that, events. I think people are so tied in together that, back then, if there was some breaking news or something happening, you typically wouldn't find out right away. It would take a day or two or three, but now it's instant, right? So people get news right away, and then right away that gets spread. And the next thing you know, everybody's stressing or distracted about something that's like literally happened within seconds. Yeah, that's a really good point. I like that. I have to use that next time. But I would love to, Richard, just do that one more time. You know, um, grab the kids. I mean, of course, they're all grown now, right? But still, grab the kids. My children don't have any kids, but still, grab the kids, right? The older cousins, kind of do that one last time. I think that'd be really cool. I'd love to do that stuff. Yeah. You know what? I was just talking about that too earlier on. Somebody asked me what my favorite job was. via text. Yeah, 9. Yep, there were more 9 to 5 jobs. Yep, Monday through Friday. Less extra. Yep, you're right. After school activities, no social media anywhere. Absolutely. Absolutely. I 100% agree with you. Hey, look at this. Maggie. Maggie, I know this is right about your early time, not late time. How are you feeling, Maggie? Freddie told us what happened. We hope you're feeling better. I think you injured yourself you were skiing or something like that, and you had to have surgery, I think. At least that's what we understood. Um, oh, you're still in the hospital in Switzerland? Oh, how you feeling? Did you break your arm or something? Switzerland. Being in the hospital, Maggie, is never fun. When I was younger, I practically lived in hospitals. So the terrible night is behind you. So I'm assuming that's a good thing. So you got past, or you went through some of the worst so far. Oh, you have surgery on Thursday. So surgery this coming Thursday. So you're going to be in the hospital for this whole week, is what you're saying? Or did you already have surgery? Officially cyborg. That's oh, I got you. That bad, huh? Would you like break your arm? I mean, oh, you had surgery already. Okay. All right. So you're in recovery right now. Is that what it is? You're not like in the ICU or anything. So you've already had your surgery. I'm assuming they probably had to use metal or wire mesh or something to fuse things together. Is that what it was? You were skiing. Okay. And then you broke your arm. Ugh. My heart goes out to you, hon. That's yeah, I agree with Richard. That's breaking things is horrible. You know, your upper humerus broken. Oh, your upper humerus. Oh, see, there's nothing humorous about that, Maggie. there's nothing. You know, like what they call it when people say you hit your funny bone. You know, I've never understood, Maggie, why they say that. There's nothing funny about hitting a funny bone. Why do they call it a funny bone? What is so funny about it? You know, and breaking your upper humerus. I know it's really not pronounced that way, but I'm trying to make light for you, hon. Yeah, definitely. I do hope that you feel better, and I hope you heal quickly. You know, I mean, you're still young. You know what I mean? Um, so your bones. So that, you know what? I had, Maggie. Now I don't know if it's still there. All right, but I don't know if you guys ever noticed right above my left eye, there is a scar. Okay, and I actually had a piece of wire that they wired to my bones when I was 10 years old, Maggie, right up here. Okay, I was on a dirt bike at my buddy's house, and I'll never forget at the time. My father said, "You're not going over Shane Driscoll's house to ride that dirt bike." It was a little RM80, okay, just a small little dirt bike. Now, both his dad and my dad were both, mechanics, right? They both had businesses in the yards. So he says to me, I said, "Dad, I won't ride it." He goes, "You better not." He goes, "You get on that thing, you're going to kill yourself." I'm 10 years old. So I walked to his house. Now, my dad owned like, I don't know, 30 acres of land. So I just walked through the backwoods and then walk all to my buddy's house. Anyways, I says to him, I says, Shane, I said, let me get on the dirt bike. He goes, no way. He goes, your father will kill me. He goes, I'm not letting you ride it. I says, come on, just let me take it around the house. He says, all right. He goes, put the helmet on. I said, okay. Now, Maggie, I put the helmet on. I didn't tie the strap, though. I just, put the helmet on. I take off. I'm going like a nutbag, Evel Knievel. I'm whipping around his house. Now, keep in mind, his dad was a mechanic. So I go around the house, and there was tall grass. So as soon as I hit that corner, I hit an engine block that was sitting beneath that tall grass. I couldn't see it. The bike popped up, okay, and the throttle stuck. And what happened was when I was forced backwards, my wrist spun the throttle. So I opened the dirt bike wide up. Now, his dad had a front end loader sitting in the driveway, and it was on a block. All right, so the bucket was raised up on a block, and the blade was just about the height of the dirt bike where my head was. I go full throttle into the blade of the bucket. It put a hole in my head the size of a softball. Okay. Now, when the ambulance got there, they pronounced me dead. I guess at the time, my buddy said he came out to get me some water. And he passed out because he could see inside my head. Now, here's the irony of this all. They said had I strapped my helmet, it would have decapitated me, right? So, long story short, I was in a coma for months, but they had to fuse the bones together by using wire. And for the longest time, I couldn't get x-rays, CAT scans. Like, I couldn't get any of that stuff. I couldn't go in pools. I couldn't be, like if I was swimming, I had to stay a certain depth because it would crush my skull. Yeah. So I'm all about the hospitals, Maggie. I can understand that. And I hate them, but hopefully you'll heal up quick. You'll be home. You'll be singing in no time. Nice performance, by the way, on Friday night. We loved your song. Yeah, Richard, I was definitely absolutely blessed. The doctor said that it was less than 1% survival rate, that it was a medical miracle. They have no idea how I survived that. He said that I should have, by all accounts, have died. That's what he told my parents and stuff like that. So, no, it's not a terrible story, actually, Maggie. I mean, back then it was, yeah. But you know what? Never got on a dirt bike again. Instead, I bought a motorcycle when I got older. I ended up getting a motorcycle, and a dog ran out in front of it one time, and I almost went flying off the thing. And then, after that, I parked it, and I never got a motorcycle again. But I loved riding. It was awesome, I guess it just kind of melted away because the bones fused, together. What they did tell me, though, was that when I got older, like in my 20s, that I could have the option. If you see here, there's a little piece of bone, right, kind of that protrudes out, that I could go in there and have that removed. And basically what that would do is that would, kind of flatten that out. And I said, is it necessary? Do I have to? And they're like, well, no, but you just have a little bone that, may protrude out a little bit, but, you can have that removed because that's part of the fusion. And I opted not to do it. I didn't see if there was a need for it. cosmetically, if I look goofy or off or whatever, but I'm not going to go in and have my head operated on again just to remove that so I can look better, So I opted not to do that. You never going skiing again? Yeah, you will. Yes, you will. You'll go skiing again, Maggie. Because once that fear subsides and you heal and you start to feel better, you get your confidence back again, and you'll absolutely go skiing again. I just think that the next time you go skiing, though, you'll probably do things a little bit differently. I don't know. Maybe you're going down a diamond slope. I don't know. But you'll probably do a little bit differently. But it's obvious that you love to ski. So I would say that you absolutely go skiing again. It's called, yeah, thank you, Richard. It's called character, yeah. You drive a motorcycle too? Wear a bubble wrap suit. You get one of those things. Yeah. You wear a bubble wrap suit, or it's like you go in one of those balls, right? Those big clear balls that you blow up. They're filled with air or whatever they are, and you can climb into the thing, and you can kind of roll down the hill, Maggie. Yeah, that'd be kind of cool. Imagine that, getting one of those things, putting some skis on it, and then you can just kind of streamline down it. So whatever you hit, it doesn't matter. You just bounce. That'd be kind of cool to try, right? That, like, we used to do, like, inner tubes. Those were the cool things, like the inflatable tubes. They were these big black tubes, just like the inside liner of basically a truck tire is what they were essentially. And man, we would fly down those things. Yeah, the Suno suits. Yeah, that'd be cool. Put some skis on that thing, Maggie, and just strap a Suno suit on and see you later. Doesn't matter what you hit. You're not going to get hurt. That would be so cool. I tried skiing, Maggie. I tried it a couple times, and I don't know what they call them. I'm sure it's probably the same thing, but they have like what they call a black diamond hill, which you're going to be like an expert to go down these things. It's like super steep, and you go so fast, and the altitude is like all the way up. So my first day, I go in, I rent the skis, I go on a little bunny trail, right? And, you do a little bit of training. They show you how to cross your skis and do all that stuff. So after about 2 hours, I get bored with that. I'm like, okay, I got this. This is nothing, man. And I get on the ski lift, and I go to the top, and they're like, you're not going on the diamond trail, are you? I'm like, yeah, this is nothing. Now, I'm sure you've experienced the same thing for anybody that's been skiing, okay? When you start going up the mountain and you're on the ski lift and that thing's kind of bringing you up, and then you look down and it's just a drop, it's not till then that you realize how high you actually are, number one. And number two, that there isn't, like, this is it, right? You're going to the top. And this thing that you're going to be going down, the Diamond Trail, it's for experts. And so all of the common sense that you thought you had, it's gone. Because now you realize that what you just did was the most idiotic thing. Now I'm thinking, why in the world did I just do this? But that all went away when I got off the ski lift. I'm like, all right, I'm looking down. And at first it didn't seem all that bad, because it doesn't start off with a straight shot down. It kind of has a little pitch to it like this, you know what I mean? So I'm like, I can do this. Piece of cake. This is nothing. So I start going down the trail. And as I'm going, the pitch starts getting steeper and steeper and steeper. And then there's guys flying by me. I mean, you could feel the wind as they go by you, and they're just flying by me. And I start picking up speed. And now I'm getting nervous because obviously the 2 hours of going down the bunny hill, I thought that was enough training. Well, I wasn't trained for this. And so I'm going down, and I remember them saying, cross your skis, open your skis, do all this stuff. And the only thing I see, I look to my left, and it's all big pine trees and then a humongous drop. And so I'm thinking to myself, okay, this isn't going to work out too well. And of course, as you know, there's some icy parts of the snow, where it's packed, right? So, these guys that are the experts, they try to hit that stuff to get into it because there's jumps and all that stuff. So I'm hitting this stuff, and I'm probably at this point doing about 40, 50 miles an hour. I mean, without even trying. And now I'm sweating. I'm getting nervous. The only thing I see coming towards me is pine trees. And I'm thinking, I'm going to pull a Bono, Sonny and Cher move here, right? Like, I'm going to be like Sonny Bono. That's how I'm going to die. That's what I'm thinking to myself. So the only thing I could think of was to basically follow my ass. And there was no way to walk down this hill. You couldn't do it. It was too steep. You wouldn't be able to do it. So I slid on my ass the whole way down until I could see the bottom where it started leveling out a little bit. Then I got back up on my skis and kind of just, coasted down. It was a trip. Dumbest thing I ever did, Thankfully, no, I didn't get hurt. But I'll tell you what, though, man, that was scary. And I don't know how these people do that stuff. Some of these guys, and I look behind me, man, they're hitting those jumps, and they're airborne, and they're doing like, probably 80, 90 miles an hour, I would imagine, and they're just hitting air, and they're flying through the air, arched forward, I'm like, that looks like so fun. But that was the last time that I ever went skiing. I tried cross-country skiing. Yeah, I didn't dig that too much. No, didn't do anything for me, but that was it. Yeah, they are, Richard, definite adrenaline junkies, 100%. You got to be like, I don't know, people that jump out of perfectly good flying airplanes. I hate flying. I flew twice in my life because I had to go to Vegas and perform. But I don't see the thrill in that. Me personally, I don't. 30, 40,000 feet, whatever it is, you're jumping out of these planes. And, there's a good chance your parachute could not open. Maybe it's rare. I don't know. But I wouldn't want to chance it 30,000 feet in the air, 15,000 feet. I don't care. Anything more than what is breakable that my legs can do, I'm all set. But I will say this. If I could muster up the courage, you ever see those flight suits that they have? Yeah, true. Bull riding is nuts. Absolutely insane. Never happened. You're just, no. You want to talk about being in pain and groinular issues, man? Not only would your spinal cord be wrecked, your groin, I mean, you wouldn't have, I don't know. I'm not even going to say what you wouldn't have left over. But, yeah, that's insane. But you know what I would want to try, though, honestly, is either one, that hand gliding, but I would like to have a seat with it, right? Or those flight suits where you actually have wings, right? So you fly, and they actually have, like, the wings in the actual suit. So you wear the whole suit, but it's fitted with wings. And, man, you just fly. Like, that would be cool. Yeah. I'd love to try a flight suit. You were skydiving, Maggie? I don't, I give you credit. I uh, I always say that fear is a mind over matter thing, kind of. If you don't mind, it doesn't matter, right? It's a mind over matter. But I also think, too, that fear it's not reality when you put it into perspective. However, I'm a hypocrite when it comes to certain things, such as jumping out of airplanes. I don't know how you do that. Yeah, so you must wear like a helmet cam or something. I never either. I've seen it done. I used to go to the air shows. You'd watch the people do it and stuff. And I mean, I guess it's for people who say that they've done it. Maggie, I'm sure you can attest to this. They say it's just this big rush, right? It's just like adrenaline rush, and that may be the case. Maybe it's this huge adrenaline rush, right? Which I mean, hey, all the power to you. But for me, Maggie, I could never do that. I could never jump out of a well, first of all, you'd have to get me into the airplane in order for that to happen, right? So that'd be the first challenge, is getting me in the airplane. And then jumping out of it would be, I don't know, that wouldn't happen. And the same thing with riding a bull. My uncle had this bull. The name of this bull, it was called Licky Moo, because the thing would lick you. All right, and it was a moo bull, whatever it was. But I remember this thing as a kid, and not just because I was a kid, but this thing was ginormous. I mean, this thing was just a huge animal, right? And for guys or gals to get on these things and ride them, I mean, that's just insane. That is just absolutely insane to ride a bull. Even the bucking horses or whatever they call. You fell out, not jump from the plane. They were making fun. You fell out? I'm assuming you had a parachute on. See, that's the thing. Right? Think about that for a second. Whether you're falling out, you jump out of a plane. It's like the people that do the cliff diving. You ever see that? They jump off the cliff. Matter of fact, in Acapulco, okay, I don't know if they still do it. I'm assuming they do. Years ago, my mom went to Acapulco, and she filmed this. This is when they had the big VHS camcorders, and they filmed it. And they're cliff jumpers. And what they would do, okay, is they would climb to certain levels. And obviously the highest point was, you're a novice, right? But the way they did this was insane, because they would jump based off of the tide. Now the tide comes in, okay, and then as it goes out, you can literally see the rock, like the reef and stuff, on the bottom. So it'd come in, it'd fill up the cove, and then it'd wash back out, and you can literally see the bottom. So it was about 200-300 feet from the top of the cliff down to the bottom of the cove. And they would time the waves, they would time the tide coming in, and they would have to jump at the perfect timing. So they would watch the tide, okay, and you could literally see how shallow it was as it's sitting there in that cove. And so they would time it. So as it's coming in, they would jump, okay, 200-300 feet, whatever it was, and that tide would have to come in just enough to fill that cove up deep enough for them to, obviously not die, kasplat, onto rocks. Yeah, I mean, I can imagine. whether you're jumping out of an airplane, jumping off a cliff, built, whatever it is, okay? Again, anything that is not within nature to not snap your legs or debilitate you for life is just, in my opinion, crazy. I think. Mm-hmm. You know what? I'm sure it is, right? And I've heard a lot of people say that who have done that. Um, they said it's the once you get over the initial fear, right? That when your chute opens and everything else, it's the most surreal feeling, being that high and just overlooking everything. I think of it, Maggie. I think of it. I visualize it and I get dizzy. Like I can almost picture myself doing it. It's like standing on top of a tall building, or if you're going up your 50, 60, 70 floors in a building and you're looking out the window and you feel as if everything is moving and you can't stand next to the glass because you feel you're going to fall out for just no apparent. Like I think about it now and I have that feeling, right? Like it's just, I can't do it. So I give credit to people that do it. Worry about getting hurt, Richard? Yeah, just getting out of bed. Richard, getting hurt would not be the first thought in my head. It like if you hit ground, there you're just dead. I mean, you're not like getting hurt would be the last of it. Yeah, but I mean, that'd be true. That would definitely be true. I was like, maybe, man, hope I don't get a bruise today. But many people are too. It's weird. Do you guys remember? So when September 11th happened, okay, in New York, yeah. So when September 11th happened, okay, there was a guy. So one of the survivors, he was actually inside one of the Twin Towers, right? And he was inside the building when it fell, but strategically, where he was when he was in the building, he was almost all the way up to the top, he said. But what happened was when the building collapsed and it fell inward, it collapsed within itself. That he just, like, he fell with the building. So he was like just strategically placed or centered exactly, perfectly, that when it collapsed within itself, that he just literally fell with that collapse. So he fell all the way within that building and rubble landed on top of him, but it landed in a way that it just, it piled up like this, right? He got bruised and scratched, but that was it, man. The guy didn't break one bone in his body, but he literally fell inside one of the Twin Towers. Like he was inside that structure. That was amazing. Yeah, no, it was true. I watched the interview of him. Yeah, it was true. That was insane. That was absolutely insane. Yes, what's that? 1,600 meters watching down on the Earth. Yeah, it's like the space videos you see, and people outside the space shuttle and space stations, and you just see the Earth, and it's beautiful, right? It's absolutely gorgeous, breathtaking. But you look at the world, and it looks different from up there, doesn't it? Peaceful, calm. It's like how it should be, But then the realization comes to your head. You're like, you know what, man? You couldn't pay me enough to do that, to get in a spacesuit and go thousands of miles above the Earth. And then on top of that, for no apparent reason, you just get out of this perfectly good spaceship and you're on a cord and you're floating thousands of miles and you're in space and you're just floating there. And if your cord gets cut or something happens, you're gone. See you later. Bye-bye. You're not coming back. That's it. You know, your suit's only going to last for so long, and you're going to, who knows, get sucked in some, I mean, I don't know. I get it. It's science, and you know, we need it for research and all that stuff. But this cat, no. I'm sorry. No way. That is absolutely insane. I give credit to people that can do that stuff, though. I really do. Yeah, I'm sure falling that speed, Maggie, it probably is amazing. I can't comprehend it, but I'm sure it's amazing. They fell the same angle of, wow, that's insane. Yeah, that is absolutely insane. So the parachutes never opened during the war, but they survived the fall because they fell at the same angle of the mountain sides. See, that's insane. That is absolutely nuts. Oh, I'm sure. Well, see, that's the thing, right? When you're doing something like that, is that it, it's not like a simple mistake of doing something, you know, if you're four wheeling. I mean, that's dangerous too. But let's, you know, say you're doing off roading or something like that, right? And you make a mistake, or, you know, you go off trail or something. Right. You may get bruised up or something, right? But there's no margin for error. There's no room to make mistakes when you're doing something like that. And that's what, 55 kilometers per second? Yeah, I mean, that's insanely fast. If you don't react in time, you're screwed, right? If you respond too quickly, you're screwed, right? If you open up the chute too soon, it's no good. If you don't open it up soon enough or too late, you're screwed, right? So I mean, there's a lot of errors, right? So you really don't have a lot of room uh, to make a mistake, to be honest with you. And I think that if you do make a mistake, it's got to be so marginal that it's, you know, not gonna, you know, put your life in jeopardy, right? I mean, that's the thing about those adrenaline sports like that, you know, is that it you've got to have a set of brass ones to do that, and you've got to have that love for the rush, you know. It's just insane. It really is. I personally could never do that. Yeah, you definitely have to react at the right moment. And I think the biggest thing, too, is, in my opinion, I think that you have to respect it, right? Is that you have to, if you don't have fear, and I think that goes with anything, really, but if you don't have fear, then that's when you make mistakes. And I think that a lot of times when people do that stuff, even if you're handling snakes or whatever, right? But you have to respect it. And in order to respect something, you have to fear, right? So that fear has to generate respect. And so you have to be able to fear it. And I think that that's when people mess up, and then that's when they put their lives at risk, or sometimes, unfortunately, they lose their lives because they don't fear it, and they don't. And once you don't fear something, you no longer respect it. That's just my opinion. Yes, it is. Snowmobiling, yep, absolutely. Absolutely, guys. I listen. I agree with you guys. I'm so glad that you guys came on, because look at that. It's actually 2 a.m. And it's really cool because I got a lot of good conversation. You guys brought up a lot of cool stuff. So this is what I'm saying. That's what this podcast is about. Open dialogue. It's just cool discussion. It doesn't have to be anything important, serious, stuff like that, But I love learning and listening to stories and hearing what people have been through and your experiences and stuff. It's great because I get to learn a lot, and I get to share a lot too. And that's what I love about doing this. Yeah, I agree with that. You definitely have to use fear as a compass, right? It has to guide you 100%. People talk about respect, right? What they're really talking about is fear when it comes to things like that. Is you have to fear it. And it's not that, you're a little scaredy cat or whatever. Call me what you want. But yeah, I fear doing that. And so when you're fearful, you're more cautious. You're less likely to take unnecessary risk or chances, right? And you're going to respect it, right? And then 9 out of 10, you got to walk away from it. I agree with that. 8 a.m. there, nice. 1 a.m. where you are, Richard, yeah, you're an hour behind me. Well, that's awesome, Maggie. I'm so glad. Yeah, I'm going to be doing more late nights with Denny Cole. It's tough too, right? Because everybody's spanned out all over the world. But I really wanted to do a late night podcast aside from the Friday night shows, because this is what I love to do. I love to talk. I love to listen. I love to hear stories, and just kind of take people out of whatever mood they're in, whatever they're going through, kind of shift gears in their mind, get it off of stuff, make it about something different. And that's cool. And that's my goal, really, is to help people. And in turn, it helps me too. I get to learn a lot. I get to vent in a way, and I get to listen to people and hear different fun stories, So I'm real excited about doing this, and I can't wait to do more. It is. Well, Maggie, Richard, I want to thank you both, honestly, for jumping in and joining me. I appreciate that. I started this at, what time did I start this? 11:30. See, my initial intent was to do a 3-hour podcast, which I don't mind doing. I could talk all night, right? But it's like male version of the Delilah show. Is that what it is, Richard? Yeah. Delilah. I remember her. I remember Delilah. She used to do didn't she used to play, like, she would take in, like, people would call in, right? And they would ask her to, okay. Yes, I remember that. People would call in and they just broke up with somebody, or they're having a fight, or somebody did somebody wrong in a relationship. And then Delilah would find the perfect song to help them cope and get through. And then she would talk to them and all. I remember Delilah, right? That's the same one, right? Is she still? She's still on. She's still on? Oh, wow. Wow. I used to listen to she had a nice, soothing voice back then. That's what it was. Relationship advice and songs. Yeah. I don't do you remember, was she a relationship well, not expert. I don't think there's such a thing, in my opinion, as a relationship expert. I personally don't believe in relationship experts or marriage counselors or that's my opinion. I don't believe in that. I just don't see somebody giving somebody else advice on something that they're not privy to, only what they're being told. It's like for me, it's kind of like giving advice on matters of the heart. It's almost next to impossible. In my opinion, you just can't do it. But that's my opinion. I guess I'm different than everybody else. Yeah, relationship advice and songs. I don't know if she was an actual expert, like a licensed one, but I do remember listening to her. Because of how many marriages she has had. Oh, so she was, okay, so she was basing, all right, from what you're saying is that she was basing it off of her experiences, right? Because of how many marriages she has had, and therefore she's taking her past experiences and advising on what works and what doesn't work for relationships. Is that kind of what you're saying? Right? There's a lot of people from personal experiences. Yeah, see, in my opinion, I don't know how you can do that. Yeah, because you know what? Your personal experience doesn't reflect somebody else's personal experiences, right? It's kind of like your affliction. It's not the same as somebody else's affliction. You can have two people, Richard, go through identical trauma. Same exact thing. However, one person handles that trauma differently than the other person. Their mechanism works much differently than that one person's does. And you could be right. You very well could be right. I know there are a lot of, especially now, there's a lot of people that do that. Yeah, every person is different, but there are a lot of podcasts, especially, that do offer that stuff, like counseling, therapy, and stuff, but they base it off of situations that they've personally been through. Now, I'm all one for sharing experiences, and if you've been through something that may help somebody else, that's great. But in my opinion, I've never seen how somebody could advise, especially in a relationship, you know what I mean? How you can advise somebody else just because you've had these experiences. And at the end of the day, I would turn around and wonder if this person who's doing the advising is the relationship expert because he or she had, say, 4 or 5 marriages, or they've been through several relationships. Maybe they're the problem. You know what I mean? If you've been through all these different relationships and or marriages, maybe you're the problem and not them. There's something that just doesn't make sense with me about that. But again, that's just my opinion, right? Yeah, exactly. Well, you know what? You're exactly right about the sibling things too, right? Matter of fact, they did a study years ago. They took 2 people, okay, and they both gave them equal opportunity, equal starts, and they did this for like 20. It was a 20-year experiment. Now you got to remember, this stuff has been going on since early 40s, probably before that, but it got widely known more in the early 50s, late 60s. Earl Nightingale, he was a prominent influencer for his day, and probably to this day, he probably still, is more renowned, like Napoleon Hill, right? Those guys. But anyways, these types of experiences or experiments have been going on for years. But the two people, they gave both equal opportunity, same starts and all that stuff. They started it off at like, I think it was like 20 years of age or whatever it was. But what they did was they put them in different environments. Okay. So one person was put into an environment that was, they were fed every day, like news, media, input, kind of the normal stuff, right, that we deal with. The other person was excluded from that, and they were only fed information that was on an as-is needed basis. And what they found out was the person who was in the constant feed, right, and the person that was in the need to know basis, this person failed miserably, meaning they doubted themselves. They didn't really aspire to accomplishing what it is that they wanted to do, as opposed to the other person. There was like no limits, no holds bar. And what they found out was, because as you get older, when you start off young, you don't have any limitations. Like when you're a kid, you think you can do anything and you aspire to be this, that, and the other. But as you get older, you get influenced and you don't realize it, but subconsciously, there goes my pen. I need to hold a pen when I talk. But subconsciously, you are told that you have limitations, that you can't do this, it's impossible to do this, or you need this, that, and the other in order to do these things, right? And so what it does is it puts limitations and restrictions into your subconscious. Now, your subconscious is the main drive, your engine, your focal point of everything that limits or doesn't. And so the other person that didn't have all these limitations being fed to them every day, they didn't understand what can't, won't, and I can never do is. They just did. There was no restrictions to them, right? And so those are the differences when, you get two people, like what you said. That just reminded me of that. Yeah, two siblings, right? But maybe one is told that you can do anything you want to if you put your mind to it. The other is told, you know what, you mess up, you're this, you're that, and the other. And of course, they grow up in the, same household, same parents. They're both given the same opportunities meaning, they both have the same means to everything in the world. But it's what one is brought up to believe versus what the other is, brought up to believe. And that is such a fact. Years ago, I used to read up on the subconscious and the conscious mind, and the differences, and how people can subconsciously really divide themselves, and they can make it almost impossible for them to function properly and to be positive in life. And that's why I always tell people all the time. I learned this years ago. Henry Ford, he's actually the one who founded Ford Motor. But him, Napoleon Hill, all these great timers, right, from years back. But he said, if you think you can do a thing, or you think you can't do a thing, you're right. When you think about that for a second, if you think you can do a thing, or you think you can't do a thing, you're right. So when you doubt yourself all the time, and you're told all the time that you can't do this, or it's impossible, or everything is hard if you think about it. No matter what you do, getting up is hard, right? Sometimes taking a piss is hard, whatever it is. But there's no such thing as never having any struggles. It's just we do things on a daily basis that a lot of people can't do for one reason or the other. We do it subconsciously because we built a routine. We took those blockages out because we just did them repetitively, right? And so, yeah, absolutely. One has good confidence and the other not. Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. That confidence comes from your subconscious. Fact, you could go throughout your day. So if you're a routine person, okay, and you get up every morning, you have a cup of coffee, say you read the paper, go to the bathroom, whatever, but you do this constantly, and you drive the same way to work and you drive the same way home, you know that it's a proven fact that subconsciously you could do that and not even be awake, that you would automatically do those things because subconsciously it's become a routine. Do you ever hear that expression, change is hard? It's not that change is hard, it's habit is hard to change. And what they mean by that is when you try doing something different than that of what your subconscious wants you to do, that's where that battle comes in, that fight. So it's kind of like when you change, your subconscious says, wait a minute, I don't like this. I am comfortable doing this thing every day, all the time. This is what I'm used to. This is what I want to do. And so I don't want to do anything different. See, that's why for many people, doing something different, change, it's scary because you want to be comfortable. Do you ever hear that saying, never be comfortable, right? Never settle. It's interpreted differently, and it can mean several different things. But what they mean when you're trying to succeed or go after something, okay, ambition, drive, goals, whatever it is you never settle. What that means is that when you settle back into, okay, you know what, this is tough. And the easy way is to going back to what you're used to what you're trying to change, whether it's a habit, whether it's a new job, whatever that is, okay, is that when you start to settle back into that old way, that's what they mean, is that you get comfortable and you're like, you know what, I made it this far. Okay, I'm feeling better. I'm feeling comfortable. No, you're not. That's your subconscious telling you it doesn't want to do it anymore because it doesn't like that disruption. So when you disrupt your subconscious, when you disrupt that everyday routine, it doesn't like that. Believe it or not, there are people that have literally cured themselves from diseases, ailments, just by power of their subconscious. That's how powerful our brains are. And to think we use a pea-sized fraction of that power, it's insane. You get people like Albert Einstein and stuff who probably were capable of using more than that, okay? Like people who are autistic, okay? They lack other things like social skills most commonly, but they make up for it in other things. Look at Elon Musk. Hate him, love him, doesn't matter. The guy is just a genius, okay? Because there's certain parts of that brain that are functioning that don't typically work on ours who don't have that. Exactly. Yes, it's definitely easy to get comfortable. And you're right, one has to push themselves to try new things in order to see what they can actually accomplish. And you're absolutely right, Richard. You're 100% right. A lot of people, they're very uncomfortable. When you get that feeling of uncomfortability, right? When you're pushing yourself, it's kind of like, I give an example. Now, I know you know this, but just for analogy purposes. So, now Maggie, she had her operation and stuff like that, okay? So she's going to be uncomfortable, right? And she may have to do therapy or whatever, but she'll recover slowly, okay? But let's just say Maggie says, you know what, this is too uncomfortable. I don't want to do therapy or whatever she has to do, okay? It's kind of like that mental aspect of it, right? That mental push, that mental pain that our subconscious tells us no, this is too hard. I don't want to be pushed. I don't want to change. And you know what that really is that is all subconscious. That is all mental. And it sounds so bizarre. And when you say it, right? When you say it, it sounds easy. Here's the difference. I used to give people this challenge when I used to talk. I used to tell them, give yourself a challenge. If you go a certain way to work every day and come home a certain way to work every day, and you have a routine, I want you to disrupt it, right? And they would say, why would you want me to do that? I'm going to say, because when you start doing slow disruptions, little disruptions like that, it breaks away the normal way that your subconscious is used to doing things. So you start breaking away from that a little bit. So next time you go to work, take a different route. Chances are you're not going to like it. You're going to be uncomfortable because you're so accustomed to going that way. Now, at first, it may seem exciting and, wow, I've never been this way, or, hey, this is a neat way. But I'm willing to bet 9 out of 10, your next time, maybe on your third time, you're going to go right back to the same way you were going into work or same way you were coming out of work. And that's your subconscious. And it sounds so insane. It sounds so crazy to think that. No, that's not true, but it is true. Because it shouldn't be that difficult, right, to change something so simple. But if you challenge yourself, if you disrupt that routine, try doing it for a week. You're going to have that urge to go right back to what you were doing before because it was easy. Yeah, and you know what? And that's good. But there's nothing weird about that, Richard. The fact that you love changing things up and you love organized change, there's nothing weird about that at all. Absolutely not. But see, that's good though, right? That it brings excitement to your life because, you know, there's always a negative way to look at it and there's a positive way to look at it. And that's the positive way to look at it. When you can disrupt things and, you know, hey, listen, I'd be lying if I didn't say that, you know, I try things and they get scary or I don't like change, you know, I'd be lying to you because it's always challenging. And the fact that, you know, you don't like chaos or sometimes you may disrupt things in order to get chaos or that you love changing things up and you love organized change, nothing wrong with that at all, man. I don't think that's weird. In fact, that's encouraging, right? Because there's a lot of people that just simply can't do that. Yeah, yep. And that's another point too, Maggie. That's right. If you do certain things, if you change in one way your feelings, and if you repeat it, so if it's repetitive and you do it for a period of time, say 21 days, 30 days, it becomes habitual. It becomes a routine. That's right. No, you're both absolutely right. There's many, many studies out there that prove exactly what you guys are saying. Matter of fact, there's a lot of, you got to be careful though. I listened to an audio one time. There were sound waves, you know, but I woke up freaking out like it was weird. But there's a lot of binaural beats and stuff. Matter of fact, I have all of the software and stuff. I can actually create different sound waves and binaural beats. There's actually one I did on DCG. I'm going to start doing more of them. But no, you're right. There's so many studies and stuff that back up what you guys are saying. And the sad part is, right, is you're right. Repeat, 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 repeat. Think about this. What you guys are saying is that when you do the same old thing, right, you're repeating the same old thing, the same old thing, the same old thing. Oh, Maggie, don't be sorry. Absolutely. I know exactly what you meant. But when you're doing the same old thing, you're repeating every day. You're doing the same thing every day. So what's different, right, is that you're in that comfort zone. You're not changing anything. But what you don't realize is you're repeating that same old habit every single day, right? And so when you change that, to Maggie's point, and Richard, to your point, is when you disrupt that, that becomes a challenge. And so your mind is thinking, I don't like this change. This is scary. I don't want to be here. I want to go back to my comfort zone. I want to go back to a place I'm familiar with. So you start reverting back. But if you can do one little change, right, and you repeat it and you do it, then it becomes routine, right? It gets easy. It's like going to the gym for the first time. It's hard. Or it's like running a marathon or skiing, for example, okay? When you first start doing it, it's challenge. It's something new. You have to learn it, right? And to Richard's point, he loves doing that change, right? That organized change, that disruption, okay? And that's the other thing, is that a lot of times, a lot of people who do certain things in life, it's because more than not, they love to do that. They're disruptors, right? And they love disrupting. There are people that actually build empires and build and just amazing things, okay? And then they tear it all down and redo it. Why? Because they want to do it again. They love the disruption. They would literally build empires just to tear it down again. And that's what they do, because that's their mindset, right? But there are other people, who can't even build Legos because it's too scary for them. And that's not putting them down, but that's the honest truth. It really, really is. Yeah, exactly. That's a really good point. When you think things will be different, but you're still doing the same thing, and in fact, nothing is changing. Yeah, I run into that a lot. Years ago, it wasn't on a big scale, but I used to give motivational talks, and a lot of it was just, to me, it was common sense stuff, right? But what I liked about it was what you guys are saying hits on a lot of really good points, and they're not over complexed, right? They're simplistic, right? And so a lot of times you can fool yourself, you lie to yourself, and you think, okay, I want to change, or I'm changing, I'm doing this, but the reality is you're only lying to yourself, right? To like what Maggie said here. When you think things will be different, but you're still doing the same thing, it's kind of that old saying, wash, rinse, repeat, right? So it's like dirty laundry. You throw it in the wash machine, but you never turn it on. And one day, you'll wash it. Well, it's not going to wash by itself, right? That's the same thing. Your mind is like dirty laundry. So that habit, it's dirty laundry. It's just sitting there, but you got to turn the washing machine on, right? Meaning you got to put action to it, right? It's like I said earlier. It's like sitting in front of your fireplace and saying, give me heat, but you don't put the wood in, right? You can't expect a result without the action. And I mentioned earlier that in order for that to happen, you have to fail at it. You have to. There's no such thing as doing something successfully without ever failing. That's a lie. When people say I've never failed, they're lying. At least they're lying to themselves. You know what I mean? So you guys brought up a lot of good points, man. And I got to say that I am super, super excited because off of what you two said right here, just based off of the chats that us three have had in the discussions, this is super exciting. Like, this is the stuff that I love doing. This is the content I love talking about, most importantly. And this is inspiring for me. And so I want to thank you guys both immensely because, you guys fired me up. I could keep going all night, but unfortunately I can't. But I really want to thank you guys. And, of course, for those that are new, these are also members. They're both great artists as well. They're featured on the show sometimes on our live Friday night show. And, of course, this podcast will be featured on DCG Entertainment as well. So, guys, my first live late night with Denny Cool, Season 1, Episode 1. Very cool, very cool. So I appreciate you both very much. And, Richard, you, my friend, have a great rest of the day at work. All right, don't work too hard, my brother. And Maggie, feel better soon. All right, rest up, and you'll get there quickly. Next thing you know, you'll be, recording some more great music. So we look forward to that. So both of you, take care, guys. Thank you so much for jumping on. I appreciate that. I had a blast. I really had a blast. You really both inspired me, and you made my first episode all that more special. So I appreciate you both. Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate you. It was awesome. It was awesome. I appreciate it. And yeah, like I said, next time I'll send out the link earlier. I'll remember to hit that send button. So, all right, guys, hope you enjoyed it, man. And again, thank you so much. It was awesome. I had a blast. All right, listen, until next time, you guys both take care. All right, Maggie, feel better and hang in there. We'll talk to you guys soon.